what we're going to do today is we're going to have a chance to meet with Loudon Stearns, who I'm lucky enough to be here with today. And you just heard a little bit of a groove that he's been working on. He's going to go through a lot of that with you in a little bit. Loudon is a professor with us. He's a laptop performer, as you've seen, a composer, a bassist, and an installation artist. He actually graduated here from Berklee with degrees in bass performance and CWP, which is contemporary writing and production. And he's since focused on programming, synthesis, circuit design, and live visuals. He teaches in the contemporary writing and production department here at Berklee, focusing on fundamental DAW skills, which are digital audio workstation skills, as well as electronic compositions. And for Berklee Music, the online division, he's actually authored our advanced music production with Ableton Live class, and also teaches our regular producing music with Ableton Live class with us. And he's working on another class as well, having to do with electronic music. So today he's going to go through some more advanced concepts in Ableton Live and with his Akai APC40 controller. And we're going to do that for about 20-25 minutes or so. And then we're going to open it up to you guys for some questions. There's a lot of you here, a couple hundred or a few hundred right now. So a lot of questions. Just keep shooting those through the chat throughout, and we'll get those to Loudon afterwards.
Great.
So take it away, Loudon.
All right. Hey, guys. Hopefully you've got a chance to download the live set I'm working with today. If not, I'm sure we'll be able to get it to you later. What I'm going to look at today is actually a new technique I just figured out. So this isn't in my advanced course, but I tend to constantly add things to it via my blog and my YouTube channel and just kind of special things in the class and hopefully more kind of live stream events like this. So what I'm working with today is kind of a new way to work with the live looper. And I just want to point out a couple things in my live set that might cause issues right off the bat, and then we can move on to kind of how to use this device. So I'm just going to switch over to seeing my my live here. So we're seeing a camera of my hands on the APC40, and right away what you're going to notice is the crossfader on the APC40 is mapped to the crossfader on that you'll see below the master channel here. If you're not seeing this crossfader, go to the X in the corner of live and just show it, because you're going to need to see that for this this thing. And if you don't see it there, you can go down to the view pull down, and there's going to be a crossfader option there as well. The next thing you're going to want to notice is just how the I/O is working, just the audio routing throughout the project. You'll see that all the loop, bass, and noises track are all being sent to the main output, but I'm also using this row of sends to route that audio to the A live loop track. That track, and then that track is then routed to the master output. So I'm just going to hide the I/O now, and we'll see that additionally, the loop, bass, and noises track are all on the A side of the crossfader, and that live loop return track is on the B side of the crossfader. So if you're not seeing this return track, it's this R in the corner of the live window. We'll show that. And again, the X will show the crossfader at the bottom. If you don't have an APC40, the mappings I made for you might not be, they won't be working right away. But it's easy enough to set up for yourself. You just do the Command-M key command on a Mac or Control-M on a PC, or just go up to the MIDI mapping button right there. And you're just going to map the crossfader to any knob on your controller, and then also the feedback in the looper that's in that return track. And that's really the important one. And that was the whole key to this technique. Once I found this, that was it. It made it all work. So that's, again, the feedback in the looper should be mapped to a knob, and that same knob be mapped to the crossfader, and then you can exit MIDI map mode. So the general idea is if you move this crossfader, you see that both the feedback right here is moving and the crossfader shifting from right to left. Now, looper functions kind of like a clip in live, in that you can just record audio into it. The benefit of using the looper plugin is that you can overdub. So I can add audio to it. I can kind of do sound on sound things to that looper. So the general idea of this is this looper is always going to be preserving a bar of the past for you. And to get this whole thing working, there's one step you're going to have to know, and that's to come into looper and go to this button right here, and I'll zoom in so you can see this button right here, and just hit that. and that's going to say recording in process, and then you can just hit play in live. And that's so basically just going to tell live to record a bar and then start overdubbing. All right, let's see how this works. I'm going to bring up my loop, and you're not going to hear anything because the crossfader is on the right-hand side. Now, if I move the crossfader to the left, you're going to hear that loop, and this is just a MIDI version of the amen break. If I move the crossfader back to the right, we're now hearing the looper play, and if I bring the volume of that track down, you'll see you're just hearing that looper. And if I was to stop the looper, you hear that'll stop. Right? So this gives me a way to take any audio that's going on in live and just dump it into that looper and then manipulate it further. So let's see how we might do a little more with this. Again, I'm going to start the looper recording, and you see the controls here. It says that it's going to record for 1 bar and then start overdubbing. All right? So I'm just going to start recording, and you don't need to use this multi-purpose transport button. That's really best for guitar players, tapping it with their foot. You're just going to hit this record button here, and it's going to record for a bar and then start overdubbing. So let's see what I can do. I'm going to move the crossfader to the left, basically putting that groove into the looper. Now the great thing about this is it's always going to remember the last bar. So no matter when I want, I can move this to the right, and now we're hearing the looper. I can even bring the track fader down here, and all you're hearing is that looper. I could then go in and do something like put it down an octave and half speed. Just by clicking this down arrow. So now we're hearing the loop play back at half speed. And at any point, I could bring the full speed loop and kind of add it to the half speed one. And you're going to hear that every time that bar comes around, that little bit that I kind of dropped into the looper will then play back over and over. Let me add a little bass to it. So it enables me to take kind of any audio. So this process is going to let me to take any audio. It could be used for a DJ on stage. It could be even mixing 2 tunes. Any bit of audio I want, I can immediately add to this looper and build this kind of 1 bar loop on the fly. And it's still playing. I just brought down the master volume there. So here's the looper. Now if I wanted, I could add a little kind of noise burst in there somewhere. Now I can click on this looper and play it back at double speed. It's pretty neat actually. Now one of my favorite things to do with this is use the loop's reverse function. When working with just clips in live, they have a reverse function, but you can't really use it in a live performance setting, and it'd be really nice to be able to just reverse things live, and that's what we can do with the looper. So right here I'll have my looper playing again. We have this reverse button here. So now it's playing the loop backwards, but I can overdub forward drums on top of it to kind of blend the two. Here we go. And then back forward. So we get kind of this mixture of forward and reverse drums and kind of all those weird things. Now, one of the benefits of this process is that we can actually even add space. If I have none of the track faders up and I crossfade to the left, I can add gaps to the groove. And I can kind of chop it up that way. So far I've been dealing with the APC and been able to work this looper function pretty well. Let me describe a little bit more about what's going on here so that kind of the underlying idea makes some sense. Over in Looper, and you know, Live is great about this in that they take, in all their plugins, they're all pretty stripped down, pretty simple plugins, but they make the most important knobs the biggest ones, which I think makes total sense and isn't always the case in all software. So we see that one of the biggest knobs in this looper is the feedback. And that's just telling me how much of what's playing out of the looper is going back into the looper. So what's happening here is when the crossfader is to the left, all my tracks, my loop, bass, and noises are all being sent to the live looper, and none of the looper's output is going back into it. So it's basically just being overwritten by what's in those tracks. If I move the crossfader to the right, now I'm only bringing what was in the looper back into it, and I'm not hearing any of the loop bass and noises because of the crossfade settings, because loop bass and noises are all on the A side of the crossfader, so they've been muted when I bring it to the right. So this just gives me a choice between I'm hearing the looper or I'm hearing my tracks. It's a really simple kind of concept, but it actually ends up being really playable, and this is one of the best kind of instruments I've been able to make in live. Now, I was using my left hand kind of on the keyboard to control the functions in looper, but I thought maybe it might be nice to use some of the buttons over here to control those functions, and maybe a knob for speed. And let's try to set up those mappings to make it work kind of a more kind of playable way. The first thing was I love that reverse function. So I'm going to hit Command M again, that's the mapping mode, and I'm going to just click on reverse, and then I'm just going to push my stop button here on the APC. So now stop will turn reverse on and off. I also really like that octave up and down option, so I'll click on the octave up or double speed button, hit the record button on my APC, and the down button, hit the play button on the APC. Now I have half speed, reverse, and double speed right here for that looper on the APC. Now if you don't have one of these devices, you can really do this with any keyboard controller. You can map those same things with MIDI notes on a keyboard. You know, it's such a flexible interface. So let's see how that is. And the one more thing is I'm going to take one of these knobs I have here and map it to the speed control, because that's a fun one. I'll just grab that and I'll just map it to this control right here. Now there's one thing I want to set with that, and I find that when you're using a speed control on a looper, it's really hard to get it back right to 0. It doesn't really want to just lock into that 0 setting. So I'm going to go to my mapping browser over on the left-hand side here, and I'm going to set the range for that mapping. So that the range, instead of going from -36, which is 3 octaves down, up to 3 octaves up, I'm just going to set the top range of it to 0 and the bottom range to -24. So that means I can go down to quarter speed and up to normal speed. And then you'll see that's going to make for some pretty neat kind of almost record kill type of effects. And I'll just exit MIDI mapping mode here. Oops. And let's see how we can work some of those additional mappings. Let's see how they can work with the whole setup here. So again, I'm going to hit record on my looper. Start that recording for a bar. I'm just going to put a drum kit up. I brought that track fader up. So it's actually playing, but we're not hearing it yet until we bring my crossfader over. And I'll be adding that to the loop. Let's check it out. So now we're here in the looper, and I have this play button here, should make it play half speed if we're lucky. Now the cool thing about that, I think, and it worked, so I'm playing back half speed, is that in looper down here, you'll see that quantization on the looper is set to 1/2. And the great thing about that is it'll keep those kind of movements in time. So if you're just moving to half speed or double speed, everything will stay in time, and if you're mixing this in with another groove, it should work out fine. So let's try that again here. One of the cool things, now that the looper is at half speed, if I add a groove in, it'll come in at speed, and then I can get back up to normal, play it back double speed, go to half reverse maybe. It's a pretty cool groove. And then I can add some normal bass into it. And I can get back up to regular speed with this button. Now this always happens to me where I get in a situation where when I'm playing with the speeds, that it's moving really quickly through the loop, and I'm just hearing the same thing kind of over and over again. One of the other great mappings on this that we can do is we can double and half the length of the loop, which allows us to make a really kind of quick thing like this, which I might like, and then kind of make it a longer phrase. And that's just these two buttons right here, these kind of divide by 2 and multiply by 2. So I'll just hit multiply by 2. You see the loop visual has changed. It looks twice as long, and I can add more into this. Okay, so let's say I really like what I've done here. One thing I like to do with this looper is I might have created like the perfect 1-bar loop. And I really like it, and I just want to preserve it. one thing I can do is actually just click right in this area of the looper and drag it into a clip, and that'll preserve that one bar, and I can just keep it in that clip for as long as I like. But what I've set up is another kind of routing that I think is really cool, and it makes this another kind of playable thing. I'm going to show the I/O again here, and what I have this resample track that I keep in red. It's colored red, and all it is it's saying audio from a live loop post mixer. So it's actually receiving its audio from that looper return track. And the benefit of that is now I can take this looper, whatever's going on, and I can record it into a clip. So this makes it kind of like, it's kind of a computer thinking where I have the looper might be my random access memory, and the clips are kind of like my hard drive, you know, so I can kind of overdub in the looper, but I can store something for a long period of time in a clip. So let's see how that would work. So I have my clip going. Now I can just click right here on my APC, or I can just clip right in the clip right here, or in the clip right there, and I can record my couple bars of this. And to prove I did that, I'm just going to clear out the looper, bring down the volume of the looper, and pull up that clip. So now I've just preserved that interesting little loop. I've preserved it for as long as I want. Now if I wanted, I could even send that bit back into the looper and manipulate it further. It kind of becomes like an ever-evolving recursive thing. But I think this is a really kind of cool process. Honestly, it can be set up in a better way. It's just a little more complicated routing-wise. So I think if you were to explore this idea and really look into some other possibilities with Looper, I think you're really going to love its capabilities. So that's the end of my lesson here, and I'm happy to open up for some question and answer. So here we go.
Awesome, Loudon. That was really cool. So, pardon me, I've got some allergies right now. That was good, and we do have some good questions from some students right now.
All right.
One of them is, how long have you been working with Live?
I've been working with Live for about 6 years now, yeah. And honestly, I didn't really even get into it right away. I think the really best features of Live really kind of happened in like version 6 and 7. So in the very beginning, I thought it was kind of simple. I kind of liked it, but now it's the only thing I want to use. Yeah, I feel kind of handcuffed into the programs now.
Do you use a lot of the programs in the suite, or mainly just stick with the general Ableton Live?
I use kind of everything that's in suite. I even have their additional orchestral instruments, and the session drums I think are quite good. I really like the drum rack layout and setup, so if I can get any kind of stuff built in that, it just integrates so well that I want to use it as much as possible. Also Sampler, which is built into the suite, I really like, just because it's so easy to use.
Yeah. A lot of students ask, pardon me, ask about the difference between the suite and the regular, so it's good to know that you do utilize that. Do you utilize a lot of those different virtual instruments in the Advanced Ableton course? Actually,
yeah, the Advanced Ableton course is very much about what's in the suite. We have an entire week based on just that sampler device, which is a fun week. Everyone loves it. You kind of build a song just from a single like vocal phrase and kind of manipulate it in sampler, which is a lot of fun. Everyone kind of digs that process. We also use drum racks a huge amount. So there's probably 2 or 3 weeks really focused on building groove and kind of some of the complex things you can do with drum racks, like slice to new MIDI track and creating your own slicing presets, all those kind of really advanced things that are kind of unique to Live. You can't really do in any other program. So it's very much focused on the Live suite, and you really can't take the course without it. Yeah.
One question we get all the time when talking about electronic music is, which, and you probably do have an opinion about this, which is better for electronic music, Ableton or Reason?
Ableton, Ableton, obviously. Come on, I mean, no. The main reason, I mean, for electronic music, a lot of what I do is to record live audio and manipulate it on the fly. And you just can't do that in Reason. And that's actually what I should point about this looper thing. I've been using pre-recorded tracks, but every one of these inputs could easily be live inputs, right? I could have a guitar player playing on stage, and I have had a guitar player playing on stage. He's playing, and I can instantly loop what he was doing and manipulate it in real time. So, yeah, I mean, Reason? No. Actually, what we do in the class sometimes is actually use the two in conjunction. Reason does have some great synthesizers, and it functions as a wonderful kind of rack of gear to go along with Ableton. And I really do like the program. I'm kind of having fun here. But it is a great program, and they work really well together. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Got another question. During the Advanced Ableton course, do you get into anything involving Max Live?
We don't get into anything using Max for Live in the class, but I know it very well, and I always try to go beyond the class material in my classes. So I don't know if you know how the Berklee music classes are laid out at all, but within each class there's a forum section where students and faculty can post about additional topics. And every week I'm posting about new topics and additional things. So we often start talking about Max for Live. I even have a custom set of Max for Live patches that you can get on mod4live.com if you want to check them out. It's kind of how I turn Ableton Live into kind of a modular synth. Oh, you saw the webcam I had in the screen movie earlier. That's actually all done with Max for Live. There's a Max for Live patch that brings up the camera, rotates it 90 degrees, and kind of manipulates it. So I love Max for Live. I'm happy to get into it like on a personal level with students, but it's not in the course as a whole, just because we didn't want to have to make everyone spend all that more money. And truthfully, as you can see, there's so much to do with just Ableton by itself. I think it's almost unnecessary to have the Mac capabilities, because there's so much you can do just with Live as it is.
What is your opinion on Launchpad versus the Akai APC?
You know, they're both fantastic. What I love about the APC is it's really durable. I don't know, you saw it in the video here. It's just a solid piece of gear. I really like having a crossfader, especially with this kind of, once I figured this process out, the crossfader became just essential for me, which isn't built into the Launchpad. They're both great devices. I really like the Akai stuff. I think it's really well built, and you know, it's bigger, and I think that's the one downside. It is kind of big, but I love it. I actually just got an APC 20 to go next to this.
Oh, really?
So that I now have, what, like 18 tracks and 90 clip launch buttons or something. So yeah, I like the Akai stuff.
Kind of on that note, somebody else wants to know, do you ever use foot switches for triggering loops?
I do use foot switches, quite a bit actually. I use a weird old pedal that came with an art bass processing unit a long time ago, but it works great. The one I would suggest getting is the Behringer FB 1000 or something. Everyone kind of has it. I think it's kind of the best choice out there now. But I do. It's really, really handy. Particularly when I'm playing bass and I'm trying to loop bass, a lot of this stuff could be done with the feet. I haven't figured out a way to control a crossfader with my foot yet, though. That might be something to try out.
Toe workouts.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got a student who wants to know if your class or the other Ableton class covers mastering at all. Mastering,
we really don't. Either of the Ableton classes, we don't really cover mastering. Honestly, you know, Ableton might not be the best place for mastering. I think you're going to really want plugins like Isotope Ozone that are designed specifically for that task. And it's such an important topic that we have whole semesters on it here at Berklee, a whole course based on just that I think even uses the product I mentioned, Ozone. So while you can do mastering in Ableton Live, we really don't have time to cover it in the course because there's so much other fun stuff to do. Yeah.
I know the answer to this next question, but somebody wants to know if you cover music synthesis in the advanced class.
Yeah, we cover synthesis quite heavily, actually. So we look quite a bit in that same lesson I mentioned earlier, the sampling lesson. We'll talk about envelopes, LFOs. There's lessons on kind of making long LFO patterns to make kind of ambient backgrounds. There are specific things on creating drum sounds using operator, bass sounds using tension. Yeah, we cover synthesis quite a bit. Okay. It's not a dedicated synthesis course, but it's definitely covered. And again, the forums that we have in the class, you know, any question anyone has, we solve it. So, you know, though it may not be in the material, it's covered.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because people ask that question all the time, and I know that I mentioned earlier that synthesis is something that you do personally.
Yeah,
so
yeah, I love synthesis.
People ask all the time, so it's good that you said that, you know, it's okay to be a little bit off topic, off of what's covered in the syllabus, because the professors are a wealth of knowledge, and
you know, honestly, I like that.
It's fun to do that kind of stuff.
I like
right?
it better. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, any teacher, you teach the same things over and over again. Those oddball questions keep it interesting, and I think the favorite students I remember are the ones that kind of went a bit out of the, you know, the straight and narrow of the class. Yeah,
yeah.
I enjoy that.
Here's kind of an interesting one. Are you using external MIDI clock on your live performances?
I try not to. I have experimented with it. Actually, not in my live performances, but I do this thing at Berklee where I hold these LAN jams. And a LAN jam, you know, it's a local area network jam session. So we get up to 16 computers running at once, and we're all synced to my computer. So if I hit play, all 16 computers start up and get going. For external sync, I find Live to be the best choice. It has some really good capabilities with that, and it works very well. but I tend not to use the sync during my performances. I did the other day during one of my Ableton 2 chats. We actually got Ableton Live and Tractor synced up via MIDI sync right on the computer, which was a very cool thing. I'd never done it before, and we just kind of worked through it during one of the weekly chats, which was a lot of fun. And actually, I was surprised at how tight the clock was. It was, I mean, the two clicks were like phasing. They were in time so well. So it was pretty cool to see.
So Ableton is usually used for, you know, electronic music, trance, different types of things like that. And most of our students are doing that. But a lot of and as a bassist, you might know this as well. Do many people record live music, like live rock music or any other types of music using Ableton?
I'm not sure it's caught on so much in that realm yet, but I think it's the perfect choice. Honestly, I can't hear a sonic difference between this and like Pro Tools and Logic. I think they sound all the same. And, you know, I think it would be a perfect choice for recording a rock band. You know, I think where it really excels in the recording is if you're kind of by yourself. Because I can set up my sustain pedal to start recording. I can set up a button to stop recording. I can set up, you know, so it makes it so I don't need a second person kind of helping me out. So if I had a studio with a piece of glass, another person, maybe another program's the best choice. But if it's me recording myself, you know, just all those live performance tools actually make it a really good, you know, recording situation. And yeah, and actually the clip view is great too, or the session view, because you can just record little ideas. So as like a musical sketch pad, I think it really excels. Yeah.
Is there a specific audio interface that works better with Ableton?
There really isn't. They all kind of work. You know, I have so many of them, and I have the M Audio stuff. I have Motu stuff. I haven't tried one of the new Akai ones yet, but they all seem to work really well. If you are planning to do any kind of live performance, you just need to make sure that your interface has 4 outputs, 4 mono outputs, and that'll give you the ability to have a mix in your headphones as well as the mix that's going to the PA. So the only issue I have with students with their audio interfaces tends to be they get one of the really low-line interfaces that only has like 1 stereo output, and they run into that issue where they can't set up a Q mix for their headphones. So I would say whatever you're doing, just make sure you look for one that has 4 outputs. But besides that, I think you're going to be fine.
Okay. So a lot of our students have been using Ableton for a while, but they may not have taken a class before. How much experience do you need to start right off with the advanced Ableton class instead of starting with the first one?
Sure, I get this a lot. So I think if you have gone through all the live tutorials that are built right into Ableton Live, and you've looked at my YouTube channel. No, if you just go through the tutorials built right into Ableton Live, you're probably going to be pretty much there. You know, go through tutorials, make a song or two, you're probably okay to get right into the advanced course. And what we end up doing is the first week of the advanced course is kind of like an assessment to see where you're at. And if you do start with the advanced course, or you want to jump right into this stuff, but that first week is really hard, we can make adjustments, and we can adjust which class you're in. We can put you in the first class until you're ready. So I think if you go through the built-in lessons, maybe get that Ableton Live Power book, which is the required book for the Ableton Live 2 class. That might get you going with the stuff. But I think self-learning and the stuff built in Ableton Live will get you close enough.
Okay. And I mentioned earlier that you've got a new class coming up. It's not going to be coming up for this term, so don't get too excited. But sooner than later, can you talk briefly about what that's going to cover?
Sure. So my new class that I'm doing right now is composing and producing in electronic music styles. And we'll see it in a couple semesters coming up. But the general idea is I look at every other week we start a new electronic music style. So we'll cover drum and bass, electro, dubstep, dub, techno, trance, house. So we just go through like 2 weeks or a week and a half in each style, talk about the synthesis that's required for that style, how effect processing is using this style, how the form is laid out in the style. Really try to analyze everything about those specific styles, the history, and then you create a piece of music in each one of those by the end of the course. At the end of the course, you end up with a portfolio of probably, 4 tunes. And then the last week we talk about mastering it and how we master differently for each style. So I'm excited about it. I get to talk about synthesis, about harmony, about composition. It's such a broad topic that we get to cover a lot of things. I'm looking forward to what it's going to be.
Awesome. Yeah. So are we, obviously.
Yeah, I hope to see some of you there.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for answering all of the questions.
Sure.